Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and looked out at the stars. He had been a soldier once, a good one. Now he was a diplomat, which meant he spent most of his time sitting in meetings and smiling at aliens who did not trust him. The ship was called Horizon's Edge, and it looked like a peaceful vessel. But Jake knew better. Under the smooth white hull there were weapons. Lots of weapons. The kind that could turn a small moon into dust. He sighed and turned to face his crew. Lisa Grant sat at the tactical station, her fingers moving across the holographic display. She was checking threat levels again, even though there had not been a real threat in 70 years. That was just how Lisa worked. She prepared for everything, imagined every possible disaster, and made plans for scenarios that would never happen. The galaxy had been at peace for a very long time. 3,000 years, according to the history books. The Galactic Council made sure of that. They had rules for everything: no wars, no weapons above a certain size, no aggressive behavior. Humanity had joined the Council 73 years ago, and they had followed every rule. Well, mostly. There were some creative interpretations here and there. The other species in the galaxy looked at humans with nervous eyes. They had read the history files. Earth's past was filled with wars. Big ones, small ones, wars over land and resources and ideas. Humans had fought each other for thousands of years before they finally united and reached the stars. The aliens worried that this violent nature might come back someday. So they watched humanity carefully, like parents watching a child who had promised to behave. Jake did not blame them for being nervous. He had seen the old war footage from Earth's past. The destruction, the suffering, the endless cycle of conflict. But he also knew something the aliens did not understand. Humans had not stopped being warriors. They had just learned to control it. Every human officer still trained for combat. Every ship still ran battle drills. Every weapon system was maintained and tested. Not because they wanted to fight, but because they knew how to be ready. Ambassador Kevin Hayes appeared on the main screen, his face tired and frustrated. He was calling from the council chambers on the station orbiting Centauri Prime. Jake could see other aliens moving behind him, their various forms creating a colorful but chaotic background. "We have a problem," Hayes said without greeting. "The Xyloth are moving again." Jake felt his stomach tighten. The Xyloth Dominion was a reptilian species from the outer sectors. They were tall, with green scales and cold yellow eyes that never seemed to blink. For the past 5 years, they had been pushing boundaries, mining in neutral zones, building stations in restricted space, making threatening gestures while claiming everything was peaceful. "What did the council say?" Jake asked. Hayes laughed, but there was no humor in it. "They said we are being paranoid. They said humans see threats everywhere because of our violent history. Chairman Corvon actually suggested that we need therapy to deal with our aggressive tendencies." Lisa looked up from her station. "Captain, I have new data on Xyloth fleet movements. You need to see this." Jake walked over and studied the display. Red dots marked Xyloth ships, hundreds of them, concentrated near the Kepler cluster. That was where 5 council species had their homeworlds. The pattern was clear. This was not random movement. This was preparation for an attack. "Send this to Ambassador Hayes," Jake said. "He needs to show the council." Over the next week, Hayes presented the evidence to the council 3 times. Each time they dismissed it. The Volosians said humans were warmongering. The Centaurians said the Xyloth had a right to move their ships freely. The Arcturus delegation suggested that maybe humanity should reduce their own military presence if they wanted to promote peace. Then the council held a vote. They decided that humanity's fleet was too large, too aggressive, too dangerous for a peaceful galaxy. They ordered Earth to decommission 40% of their military ships. Get rid of them. Scrap them. Prove that humans could be trusted. Jake sat in his quarters that night, drinking coffee and staring at the walls. His door chimed. Lisa entered, carrying a datapad. "I have been running the numbers," she said. "If the Xyloth attack with the forces they have gathered, the council species will fall in less than a week. Their defense fleets are old. Their weapons are outdated. Most of them have not fought a real battle in hundreds of years." "What about us?" Jake asked. Lisa smiled, and it was not a nice smile. "We would crush them. If they gave us permission to fight, we could end any Xyloth attack in a matter of days. But they will not give permission," Jake said. "They think we are the dangerous ones." Commander Vexnar sat in his command center deep inside a Xyloth military base. He was reviewing the final plans for the invasion. Everything was ready. His species had spent years preparing for this moment. The council had been blind, refusing to see the threat until it was too late. The humans had been vocal, but the council had silenced them. Perfect Vexenar had studied humans carefully. Yes, they had a violent past, but they had been peaceful for decades now. The council had tamed them, forced them to reduce their military capabilities. The humans were neutered, defanged, harmless. They would not be a problem. He gave the order to begin final preparations. In 72 hours, the Dominion would strike. By the end of the month, the Xyloth would control half the galaxy. Back on Horizon's Edge, Jake received a coded message. It was from a Centaurian intelligence officer, someone who had worked with humans before and respected them. The message was simple and terrifying. Xyloth attack imminent. 72 hours. Multiple targets. Council will not listen. Jake called an emergency meeting with his senior staff. They gathered in the conference room and he shared the message. Everyone was silent for a long moment. What do we do? Someone asked. We prepare, Jake said. Alert Earth Defense Command. Tell them to get ready. We might have been ordered to reduce our fleet, but something tells me that order was never actually followed. Lisa grinned. You know us humans. We are really good at following the letter of the law while completely ignoring the spirit of it. The countdown began. 72 hours until the galaxy learned that humanity's peaceful behavior had never been surrender. It had been patience. And patience, once exhausted, could turn into something far more dangerous. The Xyloth thought they were about to conquer a sleeping enemy. They had no idea they were about to wake something that had been waiting for an excuse to stop playing nice. The attack came exactly when predicted. Jake was sleeping when the alarm started screaming. He rolled out of bed, grabbed his uniform, and ran to the bridge. Lisa was already there, her face lit by the red emergency lights. Multiple contacts, she said. Xyloth forces hitting 17 systems at once, reports coming in from all over the galaxy. The main screen showed a map of council space. Red indicators bloomed like flowers, each one marking an attack. Jake watched as entire systems went dark, their communication signals cutting off mid-transmission. The Xyloth were not just attacking. They were overwhelming everything in their path. Get me Ambassador Hayes, Jake ordered. The connection took several minutes to establish. When Hayes appeared on screen, he looked like he had aged 10 years in the past few hours. Behind him, Jake could see council members running in panic, their usual dignity forgotten. It is chaos here, Hayes said. 3 worlds have gone completely silent. The Velocian defense fleet was destroyed in the first hour. The Centaurians are calling for help, but they do not have anyone to send. The council is falling apart. What about us? Jake asked. What are our orders? Hayes looked directly at the camera. Chairman Corvan wants to speak with you. All of you. Every human representative. The council chamber was in disarray when Jake arrived via hologram. Alien representatives shouted at each other in dozens of languages. Some were crying. Others sat in stunned silence. Chairman Corvan stood at the center podium, trying to restore order and failing. When he saw the human delegation appear, Corvan raised his hand for silence. Slowly, the chamber quieted. Everyone turned to look at the humans. Ambassador Hayes, Corvan said, his voice shaking. We need your help. We need humanity's help. Can you stop them? Hayes looked at Jake, then at the other human officers present. He took a deep breath. I need to make a call. Admiral Patricia Cole appeared on every screen in the council chamber. She was a tall woman with gray hair and cold eyes. She had been in charge of Earth's defense forces for 20 years, and everyone in the human military both respected and feared her. Admiral, Hayes said, the council is requesting military assistance against the Xyloth Dominion. Cole smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. The same council that ordered us to reduce our fleet by 40%? Yes, Hayes said quietly. Cole looked past Hayes at the assembled council members. Tell me, Chairman Corvan, did you really think we would dismantle our ships? The chamber went completely silent. Corvan stared at the screen. What do you mean? We followed the letter of your order, Cole said. We decommissioned 40% of our military vessels, but we reclassified everything else. That warship became a research vessel. That destroyer became a cargo hauler. That battlecruiser became a mining platform. On paper, we complied. In reality, our military is 3 times larger than you thought. A Velocian representative stood up, her scales turning pale. You lied to us? No, Cole said firmly. We creatively interpreted your requirements. There is a difference, and now you should be grateful we did." She turned to Hayes. "Tell the Council they are about to see what humans do when we stop being polite. All ships are authorized for full military operations. All weapon systems are active. We are done playing by rules that almost got everyone killed." Jake felt something shift inside him. For 73 years, humanity had held back. They had smiled and nodded and followed the rules. They had watched their weapons gather dust and their tactics go unused. But now the chains were off. Now they had permission. No, more than permission. They had necessity. Lisa pulled up a tactical display. "Captain, I am receiving deployment orders from Earth Defense Command. They want us to proceed to the Kepler cluster and engage any Xyloth forces we encounter." Jake nodded. "Set course. Maximum speed, and Lisa?" "Yes, Captain. Take the safety protocols offline. I want every weapon system at full capacity." Lisa grinned. Finally. Across the galaxy, human ships began moving. They emerged from hiding spots in asteroid belts, from orbit around remote moons, from deep space stations that officially did not exist, freighters that were not really freighters, science vessels that carried more missiles than sensors, mining ships with weapons that could crack planets. The Xyloth had studied human history. They knew about Earth's wars. But they had made a critical mistake. They assumed that peaceful behavior meant peaceful capability. They thought 70 years of diplomacy had softened humanity. They were about to learn otherwise. Commander Vexnar was celebrating his first victories when the reports started coming in. Human ships were appearing in systems that should have been secured. His forces were encountering resistance where there should have been none. He pulled up the tactical display and stared at it in confusion. "Where did they come from?" he demanded. "Our intelligence said the human fleet was small. Where are all these ships coming from?" His second-in-command looked nervous. "Sir, I think our intelligence was wrong. Very wrong. The first engagement happened in the Andromeda sector. A Xyloth battle group, still celebrating their conquest of a Velosian colony, detected 3 human ships approaching." The Xyloth commander laughed. 3 ships against his 15? This would be quick. It was quick, just not the way he expected. The human ships did not charge in for a glorious battle. They stayed at extreme range and launched missiles. Hundreds of them. The Xyloth tried to shoot them down, but the missiles were too fast, too smart, too many. Within minutes, 12 of his 15 ships were destroyed. The remaining 3 tried to run. They did not make it. Reports like that started flooding into Vexnar's command center. Human forces were not fighting the way the Xyloth fought. They did not engage in honorable ship-to-ship combat. They ambushed. They struck from unexpected angles. They used weapons that ignored shields and armor. They fought like it was personal. Admiral Cole broadcast a message across all frequencies, ensuring both the Council and the Xyloth would hear it. "This is Admiral Patricia Cole of the Earth Defense Forces. To all Xyloth military units, you have attacked Council members without provocation. You have murdered civilians. You have broken every law of civilized warfare. Humanity is responding with full force. Surrender now or face total destruction. We gave you peace for 73 years. You chose war. Now you will learn why we tried so hard to avoid it." Jake stood on his bridge and watched the stars streak past. They were heading into battle, real battle, for the first time in his career. He should have been nervous. Instead, he felt calm. This was what humans were built for. Not diplomacy, not negotiations, not endless meetings. This, the test of skill and courage against an enemy who wanted to destroy everything they protected. The galaxy had wanted humanity to be peaceful. They had gotten their wish. But now they were about to see the other side of the coin. The side that made peace possible. The side that humans had kept carefully hidden for decades. The Xyloth had unleashed hell. Humanity was about to show them what hell really looked like. The Battle of Kepler 442 would be remembered as the turning point. Jake stood on his bridge and watched the sensor data flood in. 300 Xyloth ships were approaching. His task force had only 80 vessels. By traditional thinking, they were outnumbered almost 4-1. But humans did not think traditionally. Lisa pulled up the tactical display. She had been working on battle plans for decades, scenarios that the Council had told her would never be needed. Now those plans were about to be tested. She looked at Jake and smiled. "Ready when you are, Captain." Jake opened a channel to all ships in the task force. "This is Captain Morrison. You all know what we are facing. The Xyloth think numbers will save them. They are wrong. We have trained for this. We have prepared for this. Now we show them why humans are dangerous. Execute pattern Delta 7. The human ships scattered in a pattern that looked random to Xyloth sensors. But it was not random at all. Each vessel moved to a precise position, creating a web of overlapping fire zones. The Xyloth commander saw this and laughed. The humans were running. He ordered his fleet to pursue at full speed. That was his first mistake. As the Xyloth fleet charged forward, the human ships released drones. Thousands of them, so small they barely registered on sensors. The drones spread out like a cloud, each one carrying electronic warfare packages. When they activated, the Xyloth fleet suddenly went blind. Their targeting systems failed. Their communications cut out. Their sensors showed nothing but static. Then the missiles came. Human weapons did not rely on the same technology as Xyloth systems. While the enemy fumbled in darkness, precision strikes found their targets. Xyloth ships exploded in brilliant flashes. Some tried to retreat. Others tried to shoot blindly into space, hoping to hit something. Nothing worked. Commander Vexnar watched the battle from his command center and felt cold fear for the first time in his life. His fleet was being systematically destroyed, and his ships could not even see their attackers. This was not a battle. This was execution. He tried to contact the fleet commander, but the communications were down. He tried to send new orders, but nothing got through. All he could do was watch as red icons disappeared from his display, one after another until the Xyloth fleet was gone. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it ended, 273 Xyloth ships were destroyed or captured. The human task force lost 6 vessels and had 12 damaged. Jake walked through his ship afterward and saw the exhaustion on his crew's faces. They had won, but war was never easy, even when you won. Lisa found him in the observation deck. He was staring out at the debris field, the remains of hundreds of ships drifting in space. "You did well, Captain," she said. "Did I? Look at all that destruction. All those lives lost. They chose this," Lisa said quietly. "They attacked first. They killed civilians. We gave them every chance to live in peace and they threw it away. This is what happens when you force peaceful people to fight." Across the galaxy, human forces pushed forward. They used tactics the Xyloth had never encountered. Guerrilla warfare where small teams struck supply lines and disappeared. Psychological operations, spreading disinformation that made Xyloth commanders doubt their own intelligence. Weapons that seemed like magic. Technology the Council had banned, but humans had developed anyway. One human frigate disabled an entire Xyloth base using nanomachines so small they could not be seen. The machines spread through the base's systems, taking them apart molecule by molecule. Within hours, the base was just debris. Another human team infiltrated a Xyloth command ship and reprogrammed its computers. The ship's weapons turned on its own fleet. By the time the Xyloth figured out what was happening, the damage was done. The Council watched these battles with mixed feelings. They were grateful that humanity was winning, but they were also terrified. They had always known humans were dangerous. Now they were seeing just how dangerous. Ambassador Hayes stood before the Council and fielded their questions. Chairman Corvin looked shaken, his usual confidence gone. "Ambassador, these weapons your forces are using, where did they come from?" "We banned this type of technology." Hayes looked at him calmly. "You banned their deployment. You never said we could not research them. Every weapon you are seeing was developed during peacetime as theoretical research. We just never used them until now, but why?" Corvin asked. "Why prepare for war during peace?" "Because humans understand something you do not," Hayes said. "Peace is not natural. Peace requires constant vigilance and the capability to defend it. You thought you could have peace by wishing for it, by banning weapons and avoiding conflict. We knew better. Peace comes from being so dangerous that no one dares attack you." A Centaurian representative spoke up. "But the violence, the destruction, is this not exactly what we feared from humanity?" Hayes shook his head. "You feared that we would attack without cause. But look at what is happening. We are defending you. Every human ship out there is protecting Council worlds. We are using violence, yes, but we are using it to save lives, not destroy them. That is the difference you could never understand." Commander Vexnar sat in his command center and knew his invasion had failed. In just 2 weeks, human forces had driven the Xyloth out of every system they had conquered. His fleet was scattered. His supply lines were cut. His carefully laid plans were in ruins. He recorded a message to the Xyloth High Command, knowing it might be his last. We made a terrible mistake. We studied human history and saw their wars. We thought this made us understand them. But we did not understand the most important thing. Humans fight every war as if losing means extinction. They hold nothing back. They show no mercy to those who threaten what they protect. We thought we were attacking a peaceful species. We were wrong. We woke something that should have been left sleeping. Jake received orders to prepare for the final assault on Xyloth Prime. The enemy homeworld was heavily defended, but intelligence suggested their defenses were crumbling. Admiral Cole wanted to end this war quickly. He gathered his crew for a briefing. Lisa displayed the tactical situation. The Xyloth had pulled back their remaining forces to defend their homeworld. It would be the biggest battle of the war. "This is it," Jake said. "We finish this. But remember, there are civilians down there, billions of them. They did not choose this war. Their leaders did. We hit military targets only. We show them that humans can be precise as well as powerful." One of his officers raised a hand. "Captain, the Xyloth did not show mercy to the civilians they attacked. Why should we?" Jake looked at the young officer. "Because we are not them. The moment we start acting like our enemies, we lose what makes us worth defending. We can be brutal to soldiers who chose to fight. But we will not harm those who did not choose this war. That is what separates us from them." The assault on Xyloth Prime began 3 days later. Human forces surrounded the planet, cutting off all escape routes. Then they began surgical strikes, taking out military installations with precision that amazed even the Council observers. Weapons platforms were destroyed. Command centers were disabled. Defense networks went dark. But the civilian cities remained untouched. Commander Vexnar watched his world's defenses crumble and made his final decision. He broadcast a surrender message across all channels. "This is Commander Vexnar of the Xyloth Dominion. I am ordering all Xyloth forces to stand down and surrender. The war is over. We have lost." Jake heard the surrender and felt relief wash over him. The war was over. They had won. Humanity had proven it could defend the galaxy. But as he looked at his reflection in the dark screen, he wondered about the cost, not in lives or ships, but in something deeper. They had shown the galaxy their fangs. There would be no going back to how things were before. The war was over, but the work had just begun. Jake stood on the surface of Xyloth Prime and watched human engineers help rebuild what the fighting had destroyed. The sky was a strange orange color, and the gravity was lighter than Earth's. Around him, Xyloth civilians walked past, giving him nervous looks. Admiral Cole arrived at the planet 3 days after the surrender. She met with Jake and Lisa in a temporary command center. The Admiral looked tired, older than she had seemed just months ago. "Good work, Captain," she said. "The Council is impressed with how we handled the siege. Minimal civilian casualties, infrastructure mostly intact. You showed them we can be precise." Jake nodded but did not smile. "What happens now?" "Now we deal with the peace," Cole said. "That might be harder than the war." Commander Vexnar was brought before the Council to answer for his crimes. He stood in chains, his green scales dull and his eyes downcast. The chamber was packed with representatives from every Council species, all wanting to see the Xyloth commander who had started the war. Chairman Korvan addressed him formally. "Commander Vexnar, you stand accused of war crimes, genocide, and crimes against peace. How do you plead?" "Guilty," Vexnar said quietly. "I am guilty of all charges. I led my people into a war we could not win. I caused the deaths of millions. There is no defense for what I have done." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Many called for execution. Others wanted life imprisonment. Jake sat in the observers section and listened. He felt no satisfaction in seeing Vexnar broken. The commander had been wrong, had made terrible choices, but he was still a person. Ambassador Hayes stood and asked for permission to speak. The chamber quieted. Hayes walked to the center and faced Vexnar. "Commander, why did you attack? You studied our history. You knew what humans were capable of. Why did you think you could win?" Vexnar raised his head and looked at Hayes. "Because we saw your peace and thought it was weakness. We saw your restraint and thought it was cowardice. We believed that any species capable of peace must be incapable of war." "We were wrong." Hayes nodded slowly. "That is the lesson, then. Not just for the Xyloth, but for everyone here. Humanity's peace was never surrender. It was choice. We chose peace because we knew the alternative. We understood war better than any of you. That understanding made us value peace, not take it for granted. The council sentenced Vexnar to life imprisonment, but gave him a role as a historical advisor. His writings about the war would be studied by future generations. It was both punishment and redemption. Lisa received orders to report to the newly established Galactic Defense Academy. She would be the first director, teaching officers from all council species how to defend themselves. Jake went to see her before she left. They found her in a conference room surrounded by data pads and holographic displays. She was already planning the curriculum. "So you are really doing this," Jake said. Lisa smiled. "Someone has to teach them. Better me than someone who might enjoy it too much. I will teach them tactics, strategy, and defensive thinking. But I will also teach them restraint. Not every problem needs violence. Not every threat requires war." "Think they will listen?" Jake asked. "They will have to. The galaxy just learned a hard lesson about being unprepared. They will not make that mistake again." The council convened to discuss the new galactic order. The old system of pure pacifism was dead. Everyone knew that now. But what would replace it? Chairman Corvan opened the session by acknowledging the obvious. We were wrong. Our philosophy of peace through disarmament nearly destroyed us. We need a new approach. Ambassador Hayes, humanity has proven its capability. What do you suggest? Hayes stood and addressed the assembly. Peace through strength. That is what we propose. Every council member should maintain a capable military, not for conquest but for defense. We share technology, train together, and prepare for threats. The goal is not to make war easier. It is to make war so difficult that no one tries. A Centaurian representative objected. But will that not lead to an arms race? Each species building bigger weapons, becoming more aggressive? Only if we let it, Hayes replied. That is why we need oversight, cooperation, and most importantly, we need to understand why we prepare. We do not build weapons because we want to use them. We build them so we never have to. The debate lasted for weeks. But eventually a new treaty was drafted. It created a military council alongside the Galactic Council. Human representatives would lead this new organization, at least initially, teaching other species what they knew about defense and warfare. Jake returned to his ship, but everything had changed. Horizon's Edge was no longer pretending to be just a diplomatic vessel. The weapons were visible now, acknowledged. When he docked at council stations, the staff treated him differently. With respect, yes, but also with fear. He found himself missing the old days when aliens had been suspicious but hopeful. Now they looked at humans and saw saviors and potential threats in equal measure. The innocence was gone. One evening, Jake sat in the observation deck with a bottle of whiskey. Admiral Cole appeared on the screen behind him. Drinking alone, Captain? Just thinking, Admiral. We won the war. We saved the council, but I keep wondering what we lost. Cole was quiet for a moment. We lost our anonymity. For 70 years, we were just another council species. Now everyone knows what we are. What we have always been, and what is that? Dangerous, Cole said simply. Humanity has always been the most dangerous species in the galaxy. We just spent 70 years pretending otherwise. Now everyone knows the truth. Jake took a drink. Is that a good thing? I do not know. But I know this. We proved we could be trusted with power. We could have conquered the galaxy. We had the weapons, the tactics, the momentum. Instead, we stopped at victory and helped rebuild. That means something. On Xyloth Prime, reconstruction continued. Human engineers worked alongside Xyloth civilians, showing them how to rebuild their infrastructure. At first, the Xyloth were wary. These were the same humans who had destroyed their military so easily, but gradually, trust began to form. A young Xyloth engineer approached Jake one day while he was inspecting a power station. The engineer's scales were bright green, marking him as barely an adult. Captain Morrison, may I ask you something? Jake nodded. Of course, why are you helping us? After what we did, you would be justified in letting us suffer. Why help rebuild? Jake thought about it carefully. Because the war is over. Your leaders made a mistake, but that does not mean your entire species should pay forever. We fought soldiers, not civilians. Now that the fighting is done, we help. That is what peace means. The young Xyloth looked confused. But humans are so good at war. How can you also be good at peace? Jake smiled sadly. Because being good at war taught us to value peace. Every human soldier knows the cost of conflict. We do not fight because we enjoy it. We fight because sometimes it is necessary to protect what matters, and when the fighting ends, we remember why we fought in the first place. To protect life, not destroy it. Ambassador Hayes gave a speech at the council that was broadcast across the galaxy. He spoke about the war, about the lessons learned, and about the future. His final words would be quoted for generations. We did not want this war. We tried to warn you it was coming. You did not listen because you saw our warnings as aggression, but now you understand. Peace is not passive. Peace is active. It requires vigilance, capability, and most importantly, the wisdom to know when to use force and when to show restraint. Humanity will help you build this new peace. But remember, we are not your masters. We are your partners. And partners must trust each other, even when that trust is difficult. The galaxy had changed. The old certainties were gone. But something new was being built. Something stronger, perhaps. Something that acknowledged reality instead of hiding from it. Jake hoped it would be enough. He hoped that humanity's violent capability could coexist with their peaceful intentions. Only time would tell if the galaxy could handle the truth about its most dangerous protectors. 6 months had passed since the war ended. Jake stood in the observation deck of a new council station, watching construction drones work on the outer hull. This station was different from the old ones. It had defensive weapons, shield generators, and military docking bays. The age of purely peaceful stations was over. Lisa's academy was in full operation now. She had 300 students from 14 different species, all learning human military doctrine. Jake had visited once and watched her teach a class on tactical thinking. The alien officers listened carefully, taking notes on concepts that would have been forbidden just a year ago. The galaxy was changing, adapting to its new reality. Species that had not maintained militaries in centuries were building defense forces. Ancient weapons were being studied and modernized. War colleges opened on worlds that had forgotten what war meant. All of it guided by human advisors who walked a careful line between teaching and controlling. Ambassador Hayes called Jake to a private meeting. They met in a secure room deep inside the station, away from listening devices and curious eyes. Hayes looked tired but satisfied. The treaty is almost finalized, Hayes said. The military council will have equal authority with the Galactic Council. Joint defense forces, shared intelligence, coordinated response protocols. Everything we asked for. And who leads this military council, Jake asked. Admiral Cole for the first 10 years. After that, leadership rotates between species. But humans will always have the largest voice. We earned that, Jake frowned. Are we sure that is wise? Giving ourselves that much power? Hayes leaned back. The council insisted. They trust us now after seeing how we handled the war. We could have conquered them. Instead, we defended them and then helped rebuild. That bought us credibility. Until we make a mistake, Jake said quietly. Hayes nodded. That is the fear. We are one bad decision away from becoming what everyone always worried we would be. Tyrants. Conquerors. The thing we fought against. On Xyloth Prime, Commander Vexnar worked in a small office writing his memoirs. The council had given him this task as part of his sentence. Document the war from the Xyloth perspective. Explain how his species had made such terrible mistakes. Ensure future generations would not repeat them. Jake visited him one day, curious to see how the former commander was adapting to his new role. Vexnar looked older, his scales faded, but his eyes were clearer than they had been during the war. Captain Morrison, Vexnar said, standing. To what do I owe this visit? Jake sat down across from him. I wanted to ask you something. Knowing what you know now, what would you tell other species about humanity? Vexnar thought for a long moment. I would tell them that humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. But not for the reasons we thought. Your danger does not come from your weapons or your tactics. It comes from your understanding. You understand violence so completely that you know exactly when to use it and when to hold back. That makes you far more dangerous than any species that fights without thought. He paused, choosing his words carefully. We saw your history and thought you were barbarians who had learned to pretend civilization. We were wrong. You are civilized people who never forgot how to be barbarians when necessary. That combination is what makes you unique and terrifying. Jake left that meeting with heavy thoughts. Was Vexnar right? Were humans actually more dangerous because they understood violence so well? And if so, what did that mean for the future? The new military council held its first official session. Admiral Cole stood at the center podium, surrounded by representatives from every council species. She looked at each of them before speaking. "We gather here today to form something new, a unified defense force for the entire galaxy. This is not a human military with alien members. This is a galactic military with human leadership. There is a difference. We will teach you what we know. But you must also teach us. Every species has something to contribute. Together we become stronger than any of us alone." She paused, her eyes hard. "But let me be clear. Our goal is not to prepare for war. Our goal is to make war so costly that no one attempts it. We build strength not to use it, but to ensure we never need to. That is the lesson humanity learned over thousands of years. Now we share it with you." Jake watched the ceremony from his ship. He felt pride in what humanity had accomplished. But he also felt fear. They had changed the galaxy forever. The old peaceful order was gone, replaced by something harder, more realistic. Would it work? Or would it lead to new conflicts? Lisa sent him a message later that day. Her first class of officers was graduating. She wanted Jake to attend the ceremony. He agreed, curious to see what she had accomplished. The graduation took place on a new military academy station orbiting a neutral star. 300 officers stood in formation, representing 14 different species. They wore uniforms that combined elements from all their cultures, a visual symbol of unity. Lisa gave the commencement address. She looked out at the diverse crowd and smiled. 6 months ago, none of you knew how to fight. Today, you are trained officers, capable of defending your homes and your people. But remember what I taught you. Military power is not about conquest. It is about protection. You have learned tactics, strategy, and weapon systems. But the most important lesson is this: know when not to fight. After the ceremony, a young Centaurian officer approached Jake. She was small, with blue skin and large eyes. She looked nervous but determined. "Captain Morrison, I wanted to thank you. My homeworld was one of the first attacked by the Xyloth. Your forces saved us. Without humans, my entire family would be dead." Jake felt uncomfortable with the praise. "We did what was right. Anyone would have done the same." The officer shook her head. "No. The council would have debated and delayed while we died. Only humans acted immediately. Only humans knew what to do. We will not forget that." Jake returned to Horizon's Edge and found a message waiting. It was from Earth, from the civilian government. They wanted him to return home for a ceremony. Humanity was being formally recognized as the protectors of the galaxy. There would be parades, medals, speeches. The works he almost declined. He did not feel like celebrating. Too many had died. Too much had changed. But Admiral Cole sent him a personal order. "Go home, Captain. Let people celebrate. They need it. And you need to see that what we did mattered." Earth looked the same as always when Jake's ship approached. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds, home. He had not been back in 2 years, too busy with diplomatic missions and now war. Landing in San Francisco, he found the city transformed. Banners hung from every building. People crowded the streets cheering for returning soldiers. The ceremony took place in a massive stadium. Hundreds of thousands attended in person, with billions watching across the planet and throughout the galaxy. Jake sat with other officers who had served in the war, feeling awkward in his dress uniform. The president of Earth stood at the podium and addressed the crowd. "Today we honor the men and women who defended not just humanity, but all council species. They showed the galaxy what we are capable of, not just in warfare but in restraint. They won quickly, decisively, and with minimal unnecessary destruction. They proved that strength and morality can coexist." Jake received his medal and shook hands with the president. The applause was deafening, but as he looked out at the crowd, he saw something troubling. They were celebrating warriors. They were proud of human military dominance. Were they learning the wrong lesson? That night, Jake met with Admiral Cole and Ambassador Hayes at a quiet restaurant overlooking the bay. They sat outside, enjoying the cool evening air and the view of the water. "You look troubled, Captain," Cole said. Jake nodded. "I am worried we are sending the wrong message. Everyone is celebrating our military power. But that is not the point, is it? The point was to protect, not to conquer." Hayes sipped his drink. "You are right to worry. There is a danger in success. People might think we should use our power more often, more freely. We need to make sure that does not happen. Cole leaned forward. That is why we need people like you, Jake. People who understand that our strength is a burden, not a privilege. We hold the biggest stick in the galaxy now. We must be very careful about when we swing it. The galaxy had entered a new era. Peace maintained by strength. Defense through capability. The old idealism was gone, replaced by pragmatic realism. Whether this new order would prove more stable than the old one, only time would tell. But one thing was certain. Humanity had revealed its true nature, and the galaxy would never look at them the same way again. 2 years had passed since the war. Jake stood on the bridge of Horizon's Edge, now officially classified as a military diplomatic vessel. The pretense was over. Everyone knew what the ship was, what it could do. But unlike before the war, this honesty felt right somehow. He was approaching the edge of council space, responding to a message from an unknown species. They called themselves the Korath, and they were considering joining the Galactic Council. But they had questions, specifically questions about humanity. Lisa was back aboard his ship taking a break from teaching. She sat at her old tactical station, reviewing the sensor data on the Korath system. They have significant military capabilities, she noted. Not as advanced as ours, but respectable. They are not defenseless like the old council species were. Jake nodded. That is probably why they are comfortable approaching us. They know they could defend themselves if necessary. The Korath delegation met them at a neutral station. They were tall beings with 4 arms and crystalline skin that reflected light in strange patterns. Their leader, a being named Krathel, studied Jake with eyes that seemed to see everything. Captain Morrison, Krathel said, his voice like wind through crystal. We have been watching the Council for many years. We saw the Xyloth War, we saw what humans did. Before we join this galactic community, we must understand something. Are humans the protectors or the masters? Jake appreciated the directness. That is the right question. The honest answer is we are trying to be protectors, but we have the capability to be masters. Whether we remain protectors depends on constant vigilance and self-restraint. Krathel tilted his head. That is a surprisingly honest answer. Most species would claim pure motives. Humans learned long ago that pure motives are a myth, Jake said. We all have the capacity for both good and evil. What matters is which capacity we choose to act on. We choose to protect because we remember what it is like to need protection. The Korath spent 3 days studying the Council's new structure. They interviewed officers at Lisa's academy. They spoke with Xyloth citizens about their treatment after the war. They reviewed combat footage and diplomatic records. Finally, Krathel requested a final meeting with Jake. We have made our decision, Krathel said. We will join the Council, but not because we trust you completely. We join because we recognize that your system, while imperfect, is better than the alternative. You offer protection and demand cooperation in return. That is honest. We can work with honesty, Jake smiled. Welcome to the community, but I should warn you, membership comes with responsibilities. You will be expected to maintain your military capabilities and contribute to collective defense. We would not have it any other way, Krathel replied. We learned long ago that peace is not free. It must be earned and defended. After the Korath agreed to join, Jake returned to Earth for a meeting with Admiral Cole. She had requested his presence for something important. He found her in her office at Defense Command, looking out over the city. Jake, I am stepping down, she said without preamble. I have served as Supreme Commander for 22 years. It is time for someone else to take over. Jake felt surprise. You are the symbol of everything we accomplished. The Council trusts you exactly, Cole said. They trust me too much. If I stay too long, the Military Council becomes Patricia Cole's council instead of a true cooperative body. Better to step aside while I'm still trusted. Let someone new prove that human leadership is not about individual power. Who will replace you? Cole smiled. You, Captain. You understand the balance we need. You are feared enough to be respected and trusted enough to be followed. You proved that during the war and in the peace that followed. Jake felt his stomach drop. Me, I am just a ship captain. I am not qualified to lead the entire galactic military. Neither was I when I started, Cole said. But you will learn. And more importantly, you will do it without letting the power corrupt you. That is what matters most. The transition took 6 months. Jake attended countless meetings, learned bureaucratic procedures he had always avoided, and slowly took on the responsibilities of Supreme Commander. It was exhausting and often frustrating. But it was also necessary. Lisa came to see him in his new office. It was large and formal, nothing like the comfortable bridge of Horizon's Edge. She looked around and laughed. "You look miserable." "I hate paperwork," Jake admitted. "I miss being on my ship. I miss having simple problems that can be solved with tactics and strategy." "That is why you are perfect for this job," Lisa said. "You do not want power. You see this as a duty, not a privilege. That is exactly what the galaxy needs right now." Ambassador Hayes visited Jake shortly after he took office. The ambassador looked older now, his hair completely gray, but his eyes were still sharp. "I wanted to talk to you about something important," Hayes said. "The council is proposing a new law. They want to give the military council authority to intervene in conflicts before they escalate to war. Preemptive peacekeeping, they call it." Jake frowned. "That sounds dangerous. Who decides when intervention is justified?" "Exactly my concern. This could give us too much power. We could become what we fought against." "I wanted your opinion before the vote," Jake thought carefully. "I think we should oppose it. Yes, early intervention might prevent some conflicts, but it also gives us the authority to interfere in internal matters. That is a line we should not cross. We protect against external threats. We do not police the galaxy." Hayes smiled with relief. "I was hoping you would say that. Some of my colleagues think I'm being too cautious, but I remember what we fought for. Freedom, not security through control." The proposal was debated for months. Many council members supported it, believing that human intervention could prevent future wars. But Jake spoke against it publicly, explaining that unlimited power was dangerous regardless of who held it. Eventually, a compromise was reached. The military council could intervene, but only with unanimous consent from all council members. It was a high bar that preserved sovereignty while allowing cooperation. On the 5th anniversary of the war's end, a memorial was dedicated. It stood on neutral ground, a massive structure of crystal and metal that listed the names of everyone who had died. Xyloth, Velocian, Centaurian, human, all equal in death. Jake attended the ceremony with Lisa and Hayes. They stood together as representatives from dozens of species gave speeches about sacrifice, courage, and peace. When it was Jake's turn to speak, he kept it brief. "We gather here to remember those who died, but we must also remember why they died. Not for glory or conquest, but to protect those who could not protect themselves. That is the difference between a soldier and a murderer. Soldiers fight to protect. If we ever forget that, then these deaths mean nothing." After the ceremony, Jake found Commander Vexnar standing alone at the memorial, looking at the Xyloth names. The former commander looked old and tired, but there was peace in his expression. "I come here often," Vexnar said quietly, "to remember what my pride cost. To remember that strength without wisdom is destruction." Jake stood beside him. "Your writings have helped many understand. Students at the academy study your work. You paid for your mistakes. Now you are helping prevent others from making them." Vexnar looked at him. "Do you think humanity will remember these lessons? Or will you eventually make the same mistakes we did?" "I hope we remember," Jake said honestly. "But I cannot promise. Power has a way of making people forget why they need to be careful with it. All I can do is my best to keep humanity honest about what we are and what we could become." 10 years after the war, the galaxy looked very different. Every council species maintained professional military forces. Regular joint exercises kept everyone sharp. Defense technology had advanced dramatically. But most importantly, there had been no major conflicts. The peace was holding. Jake was reviewing reports in his office when Lisa calmed him. She sounded excited. "Admiral, you need to see this. We just received a message from the Galactic Core. There are species out there we have never contacted. Hundreds of them. And they want to meet us." Jake felt a mix of excitement and concern. A whole new region of space full of unknowns. New species, new cultures, new potential threats. The galaxy was bigger than they had imagined. "Prepare a diplomatic mission," he ordered, "but take military ships. Full battle group. We approach peacefully but prepared." That night, Jake sat in his quarters and thought about the future. Humanity had proven it could defend the galaxy. But could they guide it? Could they maintain the balance between strength and restraint as their influence grew? He pulled up an old message from Admiral Cole, sent just before she retired. She had written, "The burden of being the strongest is that you must constantly prove you will not abuse that strength. Every decision we make, every action we take is watched by everyone else. We cannot afford mistakes. But we also cannot afford to become so cautious that we fail to act when needed. Walk that line carefully, Jake. The galaxy is counting on you. Jake closed the message and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, new civilizations waited. New challenges, new opportunities, new tests of human character. The galaxy had learned that humanity could be dangerous when provoked. Now they would learn if humanity could be wise when at peace. He thought about the Xyloth and their mistake. They had assumed peaceful behavior meant peaceful capability. Other species,